The sun burned bright over the crimson sands, turning the dunes into a rolling sea of fire. Amid this harsh landscape, a lone figure was dragged forward by armored attendants of the alien council. She was called Selira, a member of the Ziran species, marked by her silver-blue skin and eyes like molten gold. Today, the council had declared her unproductive, unable to contribute to the survival of her people. Their punishment was cruel. She would be chained to the sun-baked stone of the desert plateau until she broke under the heat. Selira's heart pounded as the attendants pushed her to the center of the ritual site. The stone beneath her feet radiated a heat so intense it burned through her thin garments. Thick cords wrapped around her wrists and ankles, cutting into her flesh with every movement. The Ziran attendants stepped back, murmuring ceremonial chants that felt hollow, even to their own ears. None of them looked at her with pity. Compassion had no place here. She was a number, a failure, an error to be erased. The wind shifted, carrying the dry grit of the desert across her face. Selira clenched her jaw and tried to steady her breathing. Panic threatened to claw its way into her chest, but she focused on the details around her, the cracked surface of the stone, the faint shimmer of a distant mirage, a lone rock perched on the edge of the plateau. Naming things she could see, she told herself, would keep her mind from unraveling. Hours passed, the sun climbing higher and higher, turning the stone into an oven. Selira's body burned, sweat stinging her eyes. She had long ago stopped calling for help. The council's justice was absolute, their judgment unchallengeable. And yet, in the midst of despair, something shifted. Footsteps, heavy, purposeful, and entirely human, crunched over the sand. A man approached, wearing rugged desert gear, a sun-shielded visor, and a small scanner hanging from his belt. His movements were careful, precise, as if the desert itself demanded respect. Selira blinked against the glare, her golden eyes narrowing. This human, an outsider, a stranger, was unbound by Ziran laws. "Are you conscious?" the man asked softly. His voice carried authority without threat. Selira nodded weakly. "Yes." "I'm Arden," he said, kneeling before her and inspecting the cords. His hands, though human and unarmored, moved with steady determination. "These bindings, they are cruel. They won't last the day." He worked quickly, ignoring the heat as the cords resisted him. Selira felt the first relief in hours when her wrists loosened slightly. Her knees trembled as he freed one after another, until finally, she collapsed against him. Arden caught her, wrapping her in his jacket to shield her from the scorching sun. Behind them, one of the attendants ran forward, shouting in Ziran, "Stop! The ritual is in effect." Arden didn't flinch. His gaze was calm but unwavering. "She won't survive another hour like that," he said firmly. "The council can speak to me later." The attendant hesitated, unsure how to respond. For the first time, someone had dared to defy their authority. And that hesitation was enough. Arden lifted Selira, supporting her weight as he walked across the searing sands toward a distant ridge. The wind carried away their footprints, erasing any sign they had been there. Selira's head rested on his shoulder, her body weak, but her mind was alert. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. "To shelter," he replied. "There's a station near the cliffs. You'll get water, shade, and medical care." The path was grueling. Each step sank into hot sand, yet Arden pressed on, balancing Selira with a skill born of necessity. His mission had originally been scientific, surveying moisture flows and desert wind patterns, but that purpose now seemed trivial compared to saving a life. Finally, the ridge gave way to stone terraces leading down toward the cliffs. White structures gleamed under the sun, simple but solid, with aerial turbines spinning lazily above. This was Arden's outpost, a refuge in the unforgiving desert. He entered a reinforced door and led Selira inside, where cooler air greeted them, carrying faint scents of metal and dried herbs. He helped her onto a couch, placing a folded blanket behind her back. "Drink slowly," he instructed, offering her a small container of water. Selira took tiny sips, each one burning her throat, but bringing her strength back slowly. Arden crouched beside her, studying the marks on her skin. "You were left out there for hours." "Dawn, until now," she whispered. Her voice was raw, brittle with exhaustion. Dehydration, exposure, exhaustion, "This is no punishment, it's almost execution," he said. "I don't follow their rules, and you will not suffer for their rigidity." Salira's golden eyes met his, a spark of disbelief flickering there. No Zirin had ever spoken this way to her. Human or not, Arden's actions defied every expectation she had of the galaxy's councils. He moved to the small kitchen area, preparing a simple broth of filtered water, dried meat strips, and seeds, heating it gently while keeping one eye on her. The aroma reached her, comforting despite the pain in her limbs. She sipped the warm liquid slowly, letting it revive her. "You're not from here," she said at last, her voice steadier. Why help me?" Arden's gaze remained steady, calm. "Because someone has to. Because survival isn't just numbers or charts. It's choosing to act when no one else will." Salira closed her eyes, feeling a strange warmth spread through her, relief, yes, but also curiosity and a spark of hope. In that moment, the vast desert, the harsh council, and the scorching stone behind her all became small shadows against the enormity of one human's determination. And she knew, without understanding why, that she had been given a second chance, a chance not because of the council, but because of humanity. The interior of Arden's outpost smelled of metal, sun-warmed stone, and faint traces of herbs. Outside, the cliffs dropped sharply to a restless, turquoise sea. Salira's body still shook from dehydration, but Arden's calm presence grounded her. He moved with quiet precision, checking the water filtration units and preparing a simple bed in a corner alcove for her to rest. "You'll be safe here," he said, handing her another sip of water. "No council attendants will follow. Their authority ends at the desert boundary." Salira nodded, her golden eyes flicking toward the open window. Below, the waves slapped against jagged rocks, white foam rising and crashing with rhythmic insistence. She had never seen water so free, so untamed, so alive. The Zirin had revered control above all else, but here, nature had its own rules, and Arden respected them. As she drank, Arden explained the situation. "The Council monitors everything. They believe survival is purely measured in efficiency, production, numbers. They don't understand ingenuity, adaptation, or compassion. But you were punished not for failing them, but for being unpredictable." Salira shivered, still adjusting to the cool air. "Unpredictable?" "Yes," Arden said, leaning against the counter. "They fear anything they can't control. But humans, we act where fear and rules create silence. And sometimes, that's enough to change outcomes." Her heart thumped. The idea of an outsider risking so much for her felt unreal. For centuries, Zirin had survived by submission, obedience, and calculation. Arden's methods, care, observation, improvisation, were foreign, almost reckless. Yet, they worked. The quiet of the station was broken by the low hum of scanners. Arden moved toward a wall-mounted console, tapping a few buttons. A map appeared, showing the desert plateau in detailed, color-coded layers. Red zones marked patrol routes of council observers. Yellow indicated areas exposed to sandstorms, and blue-shaded regions were open, unmonitored stretches. "Look," he said, pointing. "If we wait too long, the council will assume you are dead. But I have a plan. We move under cover of the first storm cycle tonight. It will mask our footprints and give us a clear path to the hidden coastal caves beyond the cliffs." Salira's brow furrowed. "Storms, dangerous." "Dangerous, yes," Arden admitted. "But survival requires risk. And your life isn't a calculation. It's a choice." Salira's mind raced. She had been trained to obey, to comply with council logic. But here, Arden offered her a choice, a radical, terrifying freedom. Hours passed. The sun dipped low, turning the horizon molten orange. Arden prepped supplies, dried food, water pouches, a solar-powered scanner, and a compact energy shield for protection. He even fashioned a small stretcher for Salira, though she insisted she could walk. Her pride, and stubbornness, sparked a faint smile on his face. When the storm clouds finally gathered, Arden led her outside. The wind whipped across the cliffs, lifting fine sand into their eyes. The desert below rumbled with the distant approach of thunder, the first raindrops sizzling on the hot stone. This was their cover. No patrols dared traverse the desert in a storm. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. "Hold on," Arden said, gripping her arm gently. "We move fast, but carefully. The cliffs are treacherous." Selira followed, her steps faltering at first, but Arden's steady presence bolstered her confidence. Below the cliffs, hidden in a jagged crevice, a narrow path led to the hidden sanctuary, a secret cave system Arden had discovered years ago during his surveys. It was shielded from the Council's sensors, a perfect refuge. Lightning flashed, illuminating the desert plateau. Selira glimpsed the ceremonial stone from afar, small and isolated, now gleaming with a dark wet sheen from the early rain. She felt a pang of anger at the Council's cruelty, but also gratitude at Arden's courage. He had risked everything, not for power, not for reward, but because it was right. The storm intensified, drumming against the stone as they descended. Arden guided her carefully, his experience in harsh environments evident in every motion. When a loose rock threatened to give way, he caught it with one hand while supporting her with the other. Finally, they reached the sanctuary's mouth, a narrow fissure in the cliff, hidden behind a curtain of jagged stone. Inside, the air was cool and dry, a stark contrast to the storm outside. Bioluminescent fungi glowed faintly along the walls, casting an ethereal light over their refuge. A small underground stream trickled along the cave floor, a promise of life in the midst of the desert. Selira sank to the ground, exhausted but alive. This place," she whispered. "How did you find it?" Arden smiled faintly. "Years of mapping, observation. Humans are good at noticing what others ignore." He crouched beside her, examining her again for signs of injury. "You're hurt, but you'll recover. And soon, we'll move forward. The Council's rules don't reach here." For the first time in her life, Selira felt a flicker of hope. The human beside her was more than strength and courage. He embodied something her people had long forgotten: creativity, compassion, and determination unbound by fear or protocol. The storm outside raged, masking their presence, but inside the hidden sanctuary, a quiet determination settled over them both. Arden began setting up a rudimentary lab, combining human tools and his knowledge of alien biology. Selira watched, fascinated by the improvisation, the way he merged two worlds into one, finding solutions where none seemed possible. "You can help," Arden said, offering her a small task. "Prepare the water filter and check the mineral balance. It'll take a steady hand and patience." Selira hesitated, unsure, then nodded. As she worked, her mind shifted. She was no longer just a victim of the Council's cruelty. She was a participant in her own survival. And more than that, she realized humans like Arden weren't just survivors. They were catalysts, sparks of ingenuity and resilience that could change fate itself. For the first time, Selira didn't feel trapped by numbers, rules, or tradition. She felt alive, and in that aliveness, a new journey began. The desert was still dangerous, the Council still looming, but inside this hidden sanctuary, she glimpsed a power even the Ziran had never fully understood. Human courage and creativity could bend reality itself. And tonight, beneath the storm, she decided she would follow Arden, and see how far that courage could take them. The storm had passed, leaving the desert scorched and glistening under a pale, early morning sun. Inside the hidden sanctuary, Selira finally allowed herself to rest. Arden had prepared a small sleeping alcove with blankets and filtered water. Her skin bore the marks of the ropes, still tender, but the warmth of safety began to replace the lingering fear. Outside, however, the Council had already noticed her disappearance. Ziran sensors patrolled the plateau, scanning for anomalies. The desert's vastness and the storm's cover had delayed detection, but not for long. Messages crackled through the alien network. An unpredictable variable had escaped their control, and they demanded it be corrected. Selira stirred awake, hearing Arden moving quietly in the lab corner. He was examining a series of alien artifacts he had scavenged over the years, devices meant for mapping, measurement, and communication, but he was repurposing them for survival. "They'll come looking for you," Arden said without turning. "Sensors, patrols, they won't give up. But we can outsmart them." Selira's golden eyes widened. "Outsmart them? How?" Arden smiled faintly, his hands deftly adjusting a small drone-like device. Humans have a habit of thinking outside the box. And outside the box is exactly where the Council doesn't expect us to operate. He activated the drone, and it hummed to life. Its small frame glided over the entrance of the sanctuary, projecting false heat signatures into the desert outside. They'll see something. Maybe it looks like me, maybe it looks like you. Either way, it buys us hours. Selira watched, fascinated. The alien devices blinked and whirred as Arden modified them with human intuition. This was improvisation, not procedure. This was ingenuity. This was HFY in action. Hours passed as Arden worked. He combined alien technology with human methods, creating a network of traps, decoys, and surveillance. Meanwhile, Selira began helping, repurposing small devices to detect approaching patrols, to measure temperature and wind changes, to predict the Council's movements. Each task strengthened her body and sharpened her mind, transforming her from helpless captive to active strategist. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, a faint vibration in the cave signaled the Council's scouts approaching. Arden and Selira moved quickly. "They'll follow the plateau first," he said. "We have to lure them here and into the canyon path. It's narrow, easy to defend." Together, they worked to create a series of noise traps and reflective surfaces. Using shards of alien glass and sunlight, they set a sequence that would confuse sensors and force pursuers to slow down. Selira's hands shook at first, but Arden guided her. "Think like them," he instructed. "Predict what they want, then give them something else." Night fell. The first scout arrived, a sleek Xiran drone with an energy field scanning the terrain. It detected a heat signature, Arden's decoy, but misread the direction. The drone sped toward the fake trail, its light glinting off the canyon walls, leaving the sanctuary hidden in shadows. Selira whispered, barely containing her excitement. "It's working." Arden nodded. "It's not enough. We need more." He handed her a small transmitter, alien in design but modified to human use. "Place this at the canyon's exit. It will send false coordinates back to their network." Selira hesitated. She had never acted this decisively before, but Arden's calm confidence gave her courage. She moved stealthily, the transmitter warm in her hands, placing it precisely where Arden had instructed. As soon as it activated, the canyon echoed with phantom signals, confusing the Council's sensors further. Hours later, they watched from above as the scouts followed false trails, each misled by the ingenuity of two humans in an alien world. Arden turned to Selira. "You see? The Council expects obedience. But humans, we improvise, we adapt, we outthink. That's why we survive." Selira smiled, a spark igniting inside her. She had seen cruelty and rules, and now she was seeing courage, creativity, and the power of choice. For the first time, she felt like an equal, not a pawn. But their victory was not complete. From the plateau, an alert signal rose. A larger patrol was on its way, armored walkers scanning every inch of sand. The Council had realized the anomaly. Selira had vanished. And now they were sending enforcers. Arden didn't flinch. "Then we escalate," he said, his eyes gleaming with determination. "We show them what humans can do." He led Selira deeper into the canyon, where the terrain shifted sharply. Narrow crevices, jagged overhangs, and sudden drops offered natural cover. Using the night as their ally, they moved silently, leaving behind a labyrinth of false trails, decoy lights, and heat signatures. Every obstacle was designed not just to hide them, but to exhaust the pursuers, to make them doubt their senses. Hours passed. The walkers approached, their sensors slicing the darkness. Selira's pulse raced, but Arden remained calm, calculating every step. Then he revealed the final piece of his plan, a small series of energy reflectors, positioned to disorient and temporarily disable the Council's patrol lights. The walkers stumbled blindly, their scanners failing, giving Arden and Selira the critical edge. Finally, they reached the canyon's mouth, a hidden plateau only visible from above. The storm from earlier had left shallow pools, reflecting the moonlight and adding another layer of confusion. Arden and Selira paused, catching their breath, hearts pounding from both exhaustion and exhilaration. Selira looked at Arden, awe in her eyes. I've never seen humans do anything like this. You changed the rules of survival itself. Arden smiled. We do more than survive. We invent, adapt, and fight when it matters. That's what makes us human. That's HFY. And as they settled into the hidden plateau, watching the Council's confused patrols vanish into the desert, Selira realized something profound. She was no longer a victim of the Council, nor merely a guest in this human world. She was learning, growing, and perhaps, one day, she would be the one to teach others how ingenuity, courage, and resilience could bend fate itself. The night stretched on, full of silent promise. The Council's shadow was still there, looming and relentless, but Arden and Selira had discovered a truth far older and stronger than any alien law. Human creativity and courage could change the course of destiny. And in that moment, Selira felt the first flicker of something she had never known: hope. The hidden plateau was quiet under the early morning light, but Arden knew the Council would not give up so easily. They had resources, persistence, and a ruthless determination to reclaim what they considered lost. He checked the makeshift sensors he and Selira had set up overnight. Heat signatures were moving, multiple patrols, faster this time, sweeping the canyon mouth. Selira rose from the small alcove they had used to rest. We can't just hide forever, she said, her voice steady now, a fire burning behind her golden eyes. We need to face them, or at least make them think we're stronger than we are. Arden nodded. Exactly. And humans excel when others underestimate us. Let's turn this canyon into a gauntlet they won't forget. He handed her a set of reflective panels, small devices that could scatter light and create false images in the desert. Use these strategically. Not to fight, but to confuse. To survive, you must make them doubt reality itself. Selira followed his instructions, moving with growing confidence. She placed panels at key intersections, angling them to catch the sun's glare and the faint light of distant sensors. Every reflection, every shadow, every shimmer in the canyon was designed to mislead the Council scouts. Her movements were deliberate, careful, almost like a dance. Hours passed, and the first patrol entered the canyon. The walker's sensors detected a heat signature, multiple signatures. Confused, the patrol slowed, scanning, flashing lights into the narrow crevices. Arden and Selira watched from a higher ledge, hidden behind jagged rocks. Look at them hesitate, Arden whispered. They're used to following numbers. They can't handle chaos. Selira felt a thrill, unlike anything she had ever known. She had been a number once, marked for failure, but now she was part of a plan that outsmarted a technologically superior enemy. The Council had taught her nothing about creativity, about improvisation. Arden was showing her what it truly meant to survive, and to win. But then a new challenge emerged. A second patrol moved faster, larger, armored with energy shields that could pierce through ordinary decoys. Arden's eyes narrowed. We need to escalate. Time for the human touch. He handed Selira a compact device, a simple human invention, a noise emitter. Make it sound like movement ahead. Draw them into the traps. Timing is everything. Selira hesitated for a fraction of a second, then activated it. From deep in the canyon, mechanical sounds echoed, footsteps, dragging chains, even shouts. The patrol veered off their path, triggering the first set of traps. Loose rocks tumbled down narrow corridors, alarms blared, and heat mirrors reflected blinding light into their sensors. Arden and Selira moved swiftly through the chaos, climbing over jagged stone and ducking under low overhangs. The patrol struggled, slowed, and stumbled, but they were relentless. Arden's heart raced, calculating each step, each diversion. Humans thrived in uncertainty, and he was determined to prove it. Suddenly, one of the armored walkers detected movement close to the ledge. A beam of energy light swept across them, scorching the edge of the rock. Arden reacted instantly, pulling Selira down just in time. Sparks flew, sizzling against the stone, and the patrol scanner blinked furiously, trying to recalculate. You okay? He asked. Selira nodded, adrenaline surging. Yes, this is amazing. Arden smiled, allowing a brief flash of pride. Stay close. There's one more trick left. He reached into his pack, pulling out a small, crude-looking sphere. Improvised EMP short range, but enough to blind the sensors for a few crucial minutes. That's all we need to escape the canyon. They positioned the device at a narrow choke point where the canyon walls curved sharply. Arden triggered it. A pulse of energy erupted, sending sparks and static across the patrol scanners. Lights flickered, alarms screeched, and the walkers ground to a halt. The human ingenuity, quick thinking, improvisation, and courage had turned the tide once again. Selira couldn't help but laugh, a sound of disbelief and triumph. We did it. We actually outsmarted them. Arden nodded. Yes. But remember, this isn't over. The Council adapts quickly. They will send more, and faster. But every time they underestimate humans, they lose a step. They continued through the canyon, carefully avoiding debris and remaining sensors. The path finally opened to a hidden coastal valley, a place Arden had scouted for emergencies. A small freshwater pool reflected the moonlight, untouched and serene, a stark contrast to the chaos they had left behind. Selira knelt beside the water, dipping her hands in, watching the ripples distort the reflections of cliffs and sky. For the first time, she felt something she had never experienced as a Ziran: freedom. Not freedom from rules, but freedom to act, to choose, to survive creatively. Arden set up a temporary camp nearby. Using salvaged equipment, he prepared food and water, even rigging a simple alert system to warn them if patrols approached from above. Selira helped eagerly, her hands moving deftly, her mind alive with strategy. Every action she took, every idea she offered, was part of a human method: adapt, improvise, overcome. Night deepened. The Council's shadows still lingered, but Arden and Selira were ready. They were no longer just hiding, they were preparing. Preparing for the next step, the next challenge, the moment when human ingenuity would turn desperation into victory. Selira looked at Arden, her eyes shining. "You didn't just save me," she said softly. "You showed me something I never knew I could be. I feel alive." Arden smiled, his gaze steady, almost proud. "Humans have always been underestimated, Selira. We survive where others fail because we think, adapt, and act when it matters most. And now, you've learned the same." For the first time, she understood. Survival was not about rules or strength, it was about creativity, courage, and the determination to act when everyone else hesitates. And as they settled near the pool, watching the stars shimmer over the hidden valley, Selira knew the Council's shadow was far from gone. But so was her fear. The human spark of ingenuity had ignited something inside her, a courage that would never be chained again. The next battle would come. And when it did, Selira would fight alongside Arden, not as a victim, but as a partner in the relentless, unstoppable force of humanity. Dawn broke over the hidden valley, painting the cliffs in shades of gold and crimson. Arden and Selira had barely slept, preparing for the Council's inevitable return. The scouts of the Ziran had already been misled, but Arden knew the Council would escalate. They would send their elite enforcers, swift, heavily armed, and relentless. Selira stretched, her muscles aching, but she felt sharper than ever. The fear that had once anchored her to a sun-baked stone had transformed into determination. Arden handed her a compact energy shield, something he had improvised using salvaged alien tech. "You'll need this. But remember, survival isn't just strength, it's strategy." Selira gripped it tightly, the weight grounding her. She had learned the human way: think, adapt, act. And now, she was ready. Above the cliffs, shadows moved, sleek Ziran walkers descending with precision. Their sensors glowed faintly, sweeping the valley, searching for heat, movement, life. Arden pointed toward natural choke points in the terrain: jagged rocks, shallow streams, and dense foliage. "We lure them in, but not to trap them. To teach them a lesson they won't forget." The first Enforcer walker stepped into the valley, scanning methodically. Arden had positioned a series of decoys, small drones that mimicked human heat signatures and movement. Lights flickered, shadows danced, and the walkers hesitated, their advanced sensors struggling to interpret the chaos. Selira held her breath as Arden whispered, "Now." She triggered a small series of energy reflectors, catching the morning sun in precise angles. Beams flashed across the valley, blinding sensors temporarily. A scout stumbled, misreading the reflections, and veered dangerously close to a false cliff edge. Arden's improvisation had turned the alien technology against them. But the Council's elite was clever. More walkers advanced, adapting to the illusions, their sensors recalibrating faster. Arden frowned. They learn quickly. Time for the final human touch. From his pack, he produced a sphere of improvised tech, part EMP, part holographic projection. He placed it at the center of the valley, disguised among rocks. This will give us a few critical minutes. Use them wisely. Selira activated the device. Instantly, the valley erupted with visual and auditory chaos. Holographic images of humans appeared, moving in multiple directions, while a pulse of energy scrambled the walkers' sensors. The Ziran enforcers faltered, their systems overloading for precious seconds. Move! Arden shouted. They sprinted through the valley, Selira leading, using natural cover to their advantage. Every step was calculated, every movement a lesson in improvisation. The enforcers followed blindly, hitting obstacles, triggering decoys, and stumbling into traps that Arden had crafted. The valley became a living maze, an obstacle course designed to exploit the Council's rigidity. At the far end of the valley, a narrow cliffside path led to the coast. Arden and Selira reached it, breathless but alive. They paused, looking back. The walkers had been forced to retreat, unable to navigate the traps and false trails. Arden smiled faintly. And that, Selira, is why humans are underestimated. We adapt, we improvise, we endure. That's HFY. Selira's heart swelled with a new understanding. The Council had once chained her, declared her unworthy, and abandoned her to the sun. But humans had shown her that courage, creativity, and determination could rewrite fate. I feel like I could do anything now, she said. Anything humans can do. I want to learn, to survive, to fight. Arden nodded. And you will. The galaxy underestimates humans, and now, it will underestimate you as well. But that's where our power lies. They descended the cliff path, reaching the hidden coast. Waves lapped gently against the rocks, the sea sparkling in the morning light. For a moment, the world was calm. For the first time, Selira tasted the freedom of choice, not forced by necessity, but earned through action and ingenuity. Arden handed her a small toolkit, alien in origin but modified for human use. We have a long journey ahead, he said. The Council will not forget, and neither will their allies. But that's the point. Every challenge makes us stronger, smarter, faster, and you are ready for it. Selira looked out over the water, her mind racing with possibilities. She had been a prisoner, a statistic, a failure. Now, she was something entirely new, a student of human ingenuity, a participant in survival, and a partner in defiance. The Ziran Council might control numbers, technology, and rigid laws, but humans controlled something far more dangerous: unpredictable creativity, relentless courage, and the will to act when others would hesitate. And as Arden and Selira prepared their next moves, plotting safe routes, decoy strategies, and supply lines along the coast, she realized the truth of it. The galaxy had never faced anything like humanity before. The sun climbed higher, glinting off the waves. Somewhere in the desert, the Council would continue their search, but Arden and Selira were already steps ahead. Every trap, every decoy, every improvised tactic had taught them a lesson. The universe may be vast and merciless, but human ingenuity could bend even the cruelest fate. Selira turned to Arden, a smile of fierce determination on her face. Let's show them what humans, and those who learn from them, are capable of. And with that, they vanished into the coastal shadows, leaving the Council's elite confounded, outmaneuvered, and forever reminded of one immutable truth. Humans do not give up, they do not follow blindly, and they never, ever surrender. The dawn marked not just survival, but the beginning of a legend, one of courage, ingenuity, and the unstoppable force of humanity.